Hello, everyone. My name is. Thank you. My name is William Cooper. I'm the proud grandson of Frida Cooper. I've researched the world region by region to understand the past and the present. I'm excited to bring the World Monthly to Amica. Last month, I presented Iran and the Persian Empire, the first of a three-part series on the Middle East. Today, I will present part 2 on Israel and the Arab countries. Next month, I will present part 3 on Turkey and the Ottoman Empire. Thereafter, we will continue our travels. Israel and the Arab countries. The Middle East, which we'll call ME, is a transcontinental region that includes 16 or 17 countries. Since its history is very long, we'll have to focus mostly on the last 120 years that have caused many problems. This is about land, interference by other powers, oil, religion, and hopefully peace. Bon voyage. I am 10. I'm neither Israeli nor Palestinian, so I don't know what it is like to deal with this emotional attachment, history, and the future of this very special land. There are strong views held on all sides. I do not want to offend anyone. Our presentation has 6 parts. Canada and USA are pro-Israel and Jews, history, state of Israel created, oil, modern Middle East, and peace. Part 1. Canada and the USA are pro-Israel and Jews. There are only 15 million Jews around the world. They have accomplished outstanding things. Many are top doctors, lawyers, and dentists, as well as innovators in science and technology. But above all, they are change makers. Famous Jews. First, we start with Albert Einstein.
It follows from the special theory of relativity that mass and energy are but different manifestations of the same thing, a somewhat unfamiliar conception for the average mind. Furthermore, the equation E is equal mc squared, in which energy is put equal to mass multiplied with the square of the velocity of light, showed that very small amount of mass may be converted into a very large amount of energy, and vice versa. The mass and energy were in fact equivalent, according to the formula mentioned above. This was demonstrated by Kokra and Walton in 1932 experimentally. It follows from the special theory of relativity that mass and energy are but different manifestations of the same thing, a somewhat unfamiliar conception for the average mind. Furthermore, the equation
It's repeating. It repeated. Now we have Elie Wiesel, Anne Frank, Viktor Frankl, and now we have Sigmund Freud, Barbra Streisand, Vladimir Zelensky, Golda Meir, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Mark Zuckerberg, Jerry Seinfeld, and Billy Crystal. Holy sites in Jerusalem.
The land of Israel is also known as the Holy Land. It is considered holy not only for Jews, but also for Christians and Muslims, as well as for the Druze and Baha'i faiths. Let's visit some of the holy places in Israel and learn a little bit about why they are holy and for whom. The Western Wall, Hakotel HaMa'aravi, is regarded as the most significant site in the world for the Jewish people. It is located adjacent to the Temple Mount, Har HaBayit, in Jerusalem, a holy city for Jews, Christians and Muslims. According to Jewish tradition, many important events took place at the Temple Mount, at the foundation stone located on the peak of the mountain, the creation of the world, the binding of Isaac, Jacob's dream. Later on, the first and second temple were built there. In the year 37 BCE, Herod was appointed king in Jerusalem, and he initiated a huge renovation project for the temple. He hired many workers who toiled to make the temple more magnificent and to extend the area of the Temple Mount by flattening the mountain peak and building 4 supporting walls around it. The Western Wall is the Western Support Wall. What makes the Western Wall, and not one of the other 3 supporting walls, the most special is its proximity to the location of the Holy of Holies in the temple. To this day, Jews from around the world gather to pray at the Kotel, the Western Wall, and write notes to God, placing them between the ancient stones of the wall. Most Jews do not pray at the site of the destroyed temple itself, since the Temple Mount, in Arabic Haram al-Sharif, is not only holy for Jews. It is considered the 3rd holiest site in Islam. The present site is dominated by 3 monumental Muslim structures. The Al-Aqsa Mosque, to which Muslims believe that Muhammad was transported from the sacred mosque in Mecca during the famous Night Journey. The Dome of the Rock, where the foundation stone is located. The Dome of the Chain, where according to Muslim tradition, Judgment Day will occur. Islamic tradition holds that Muhammad led prayers facing the Temple Mount until the 17th month after his arrival in Medina, when God directed him to turn towards Mecca. Another holy place in Jerusalem is the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, also called the Church of the Resurrection. This site is holy for Christians as it is venerated as Calvary, Golgotha, where Jesus of Nazareth was crucified, and also contains the place where Jesus is said to have been buried and resurrected. Within the church are the last 4, or by some definitions 5, stations of the cross along the Via Dolorosa, representing the final episodes of Jesus' Passion. The church has been an important destination for Christian pilgrimage since at least the 4th century. Leaving Jerusalem, you can find several holy sites not far from the city. About 10 kilometers south of Jerusalem is the town of Bethlehem. The Hebrew Bible identifies it as the city King David was from, and where he was crowned as the King of Israel. The New Testament identifies Bethlehem as the birthplace of Jesus. The Church of the Nativity is a basilica located in the center of Bethlehem. The church was originally commissioned in 327 AD by Constantine and his mother Helena at the site that is traditionally considered to be located over the cave that marks the birthplace of Jesus. During various periods over the past 1700 years, Bethlehem and the Church of the Nativity have been, and still are, a pilgrim destination. Located at the northern entrance of Bethlehem is Rachel's tomb, an important Jewish holy site. The Bible says, "And Rachel died, and was buried on the way to Ephrat," which is Bethlehem. "And Jacob set a pillar upon her grave." That is the pillar of Rachel's grave unto this day. Rachel is considered the eternal mother, caring for her children when they are in distress, especially for barren or pregnant women. Jewish tradition teaches that Rachel weeps for her children, and that when the Jews were taken into exile, she wept as they passed by her grave on the way to Babylonia. Jews have made pilgrimage to the tomb since ancient times. Another site located 30 kilometers south of Jerusalem, in the heart of the old city of Hebron, is the Cave of the Patriarchs, in Hebrew called the Cave of Machpelah, Cave of the Double Tombs. This site is a series of subterranean chambers, according to tradition that has been associated with both the Torah and the Quran. The cave and the adjoining field were purchased by Abraham as a burial plot. The belief is that the site includes the double tombs of Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob and Leah, considered the patriarchs and matriarchs of the Jewish people. The only Jewish matriarch missing is Rachel. Further mystical traditions maintain that Adam and Eve were buried there, and that the cave is the entrance to the Garden of Eden. The Arabic name of the complex, the Sanctuary of Abraham, or the Ibrahimi Mosque, reflects the prominence given to Abraham, revered by Muslims as a Quranic prophet and patriarch. Another area in Israel which contains many holy sites is the Galilee. Many of Christianity's most important sites are located in the north of Israel. In the New Testament, Nazareth is described as the childhood home of Jesus, and as such is a center for Christian pilgrims with many shrines commemorating biblical events. The Church of the Annunciation in Nazareth is the largest Catholic church in the Middle East. In Roman Catholic tradition, it marks the site where the Archangel Gabriel announced the future birth of Jesus to the Virgin Mary. Muslim holy sites in Nazareth include the White Mosque, Al-Abiyad, and the Peace Mosque, Al-Salam. Several formative events in the New Testament take place around the Sea of Galilee. On its shores, Jesus recruited his first disciples and performed various miracles. One of the places where Jesus performed miracles was Capernaum, a small fishing village located on the north shore. Excavations have revealed one residence that stood out from the others. Pilgrims referred to this as the house of the Apostle Peter. Not far from Capernaum, west of the Sea of Galilee, is Nabi Shuaib, a holy site for the Druze religion. According to Druze tradition, Shuaib is identified with the biblical Jethro, father-in-law of Moses. Druze tradition holds that Saladin, the first Sultan of Egypt and Syria, had a dream the night before his battle against the Crusaders at Hittim. In the dream, an angel promised him victory on the condition that after the battle he would ride his horse westward. Then, where the horse would stop, the angel said he would find the burial site of Shuaib. The tradition holds that when Saladin's dream was realized, the Druze built a shrine for Shuaib at the site. Another burial site in the Galilee is the tomb of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai at Mount Meron. It is to this place that over 500,000 Jews flock once a year to receive fertility blessings, to ritually cut their young son's hair, and to celebrate the festival of Lag BaOmer. We conclude this video with the shrine of Baha'u'llah, located in Baji near Akko. This is the most holy place for the Baha'i religion and represents their Qibli, direction of prayer. It contains the remains of Baha'u'llah, the founder of the Baha'i faith, and is near the spot where he died in the mansion of Baji. The whole complex is called Al-Baja, place of delight. The Shrine of the Bab is a structure in Haifa, which is considered as the second holiest place on earth for Baha'is, after the Shrine of Baha'u'llah in Akko. The shrine is enhanced by 19 magnificent garden terraces that stretch 1 kilometer from the base of Mount Carmel to its summit, and it is one of the most recognizable landmarks in Haifa, attracting millions of visitors.
Part 2, History. Muslims, Jews, and Christians have historical ties to the land that is now Israel and the rest of the Middle East. Israel, well, the land that is Israel today, has been controlled by several empires. We start with the Romans. It was predominantly Jewish until the Jewish-Roman wars that expelled most of the Jews, and Jewish settlements declined from over 160 to 50. The area became more Christian. The Sasanians. We've already talked about the Sasanians in my previous presentation about Iran and the Persian Empire, but they were Zoroastrians. When they controlled what is now Israel for more than 400 years, this had a lasting impact on Jewish culture, as many Jews fled because they were afraid that they were going to be persecuted because of their religion. The percentage of Jews in the area went down to 10%. Crusader forces conquered Jerusalem, and this formed the Kingdom of Jerusalem. Over the following 200 years, they would lose and regain the area until their final loss in 1291. The Mamluks. A lot of you may not have heard of them, but they were an empire originating in Egypt. They were slaves in origin, and made architectural signs of civilization in Jerusalem today are from this period. This made a great leap into the future with new concepts of all kinds. The Ottoman Empire also controlled what is now Israel for more than 400 years. The land was divided into 4 districts, but this wasn't the borders. This was just how it was governed. There were 1,000 Jewish families. During World War I, Britain told the Arab countries that if they helped fight the Ottomans, they would find a way to give them all independence. Arabs all fought and destroyed the Ottomans, but it turned out that Britain was lying because they were making a secret deal with the French called the Sykes-Picot Agreement. This agreement was done to divide regions near the Ottoman Empire. So Britain gave modern-day Lebanon to France, and France gave Britain central Mesopotamia. Palestine was to become international land, but we'll speak more about that soon. The Balfour Declaration was between Lord Balfour and Lord Rothschild. During this time, there was a new movement going through the British Parliament. It was called Zionism, and it was formed by this Jewish scholar and scientist who believed that there should be a state for all Jews. The Paris Peace Treaty ended World War I. At this time, the victors of the Great War, as it was called, redrew the maps of the world. The promises and agreements that were made, their repercussions are still being felt, mostly in the Middle East. The Cairo Conference was another breakup of the Middle East. In this conference, the main goal was to make sure that Arabs were to be given control of their land, and the leaders were specifically supposed to be part of the Hashemite family, which included Prince Faisal, who became king of today's Iraq, and Prince Abdullah, who became king of today's Jordan. But the Kurds were not given their own country, and this is important because today there are many communities in Iran and Iraq that believe that there should be a Kurdish state called Kurdistan. And Palestine was divided in half, with one half being British, and people considered giving the Jews the other half. During World War II, Nazi Germany, led by Adolf Hitler, believed that his country's perils were caused by Jews. He started a genocide called the Holocaust. Over 6 million Jews perished. The world will never forget. Part 3, Creation of Israel. In 1947, Palestinian land was given to the Jews. And this country called Israel was first recognized by the USSR in 1944. And soon the US and Britain followed. Today, 28 UN members do not recognize Israel. The UN Resolution 181 was a proposal by the UN recommending a partition of this new state called Israel, creating independent Arab and Jewish states. And Jerusalem was to be governed by a special international regime, but we know that this never happened. The Arab-Israeli War was a civil war between Jewish and Arab militias, because the Palestinians were mad that the Jewish were now conquering their land. Agreements were signed between Israel, Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria, and this established armistice lines, which are now called the Green Line. The Green Line is now on the borders of the Golan Heights, West Bank, and the Gaza Strip. The Suez Crisis was Egypt versus Britain, France, and Israel, who had the intention to occupy the Sinai Peninsula and take over the Suez Canal. This decision followed Egypt nationalizing the canal, and the Israeli invasion of the Sinai was successful, but the US and the USSR forced it to retreat. The Six-Day War was Israel versus Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and Algeria. All these countries against one, and Israel still won. This shows the power of the Israeli army. After the war, Israel got the West Bank, Golan Heights, Sinai, and Gaza. The War of Attrition. In this war, it was Israel versus Egypt, the USSR, Jordan, Syria, and the Palestine Liberation Organization. The war was initiated by the Egyptians, who wanted to get the Sinai Peninsula back. It ended with a ceasefire, and the borders did not change. The Yom Kippur War, which began with a surprise joint attack by Egypt and Syria on the date of Yom Kippur, was a coalition of Arab states against Israel. This was done to recapture part of the territories they lost in the Six-Day War. Arab forces were defeated again, and no territorial changes happened. The First Intifada were a series of violent riots carried out by Palestinians. This was motivated over frustration over Israel's military occupation of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. But this ended with the Oslo Accords. The issue with Jerusalem. Jews, Muslims, and Christians all consider Jerusalem sacred. The Jews believe it's important because of the Temple Mount. The Muslims believe it's holy because that's where Prophet Muhammad went to heaven. And the Christians believe it is very important because Jesus preached there, was crucified there, and was resurrected by God. Part 4, oil. OPEC was founded in 1960 in Iraq, and the 5 founding members were Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela, but there are now 13. Its mission was to unify petroleum policies to secure stable prices. There were 2 main oil crises. The first one made the price of oil rise nearly 300%, and this shrunk the U.S. economy by almost 3%. The second one made oil production decrease by 4%. And this may not sound like a lot, but the oil prices more than doubled the price of each barrel to almost $40. Part 5, Middle East today. Today there are 3 primary religions: Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. Islam has 2 sects, Sunni and Shia. Shia Islam believes that Prophet Muhammad designated Imam Ali as caliph, and Sunni Islam believes that Abu Bakr was appointed caliph. Then we have Christianity and Judaism, which is primarily in Israel. Countries. So we have 4 Shia Islam majority countries, 12 that are Sunni Islam, and 1 that is Jewish majority, Israel. Let's learn some fun facts about the Middle Eastern countries. Half of Cyprus's land is claimed by Turkey. Israel is considered the most advanced in the Middle East in science and technology. Jordan is one of the most politically stable countries in the region. And Kuwait, approximately 70% of its citizens are foreign nationals. During the 2008 financial crisis, Lebanon's economy grew at over 9%. In Qatar, 2.3 million of their 2.67 million people are foreign nationals. And Saudi Arabia is the largest country in the Middle East by size. So again, the largest country by size is Saudi Arabia, and the smallest is Bahrain. The highest population can be found in Egypt, and the lowest is again in Bahrain. The highest GDP is again in Saudi Arabia, and the lowest is in Yemen. The highest GDP per capita is in Qatar, 83,000, and the lowest is in Yemen again, 874. Part 6, peace. Peace is the concept of societal friendship and harmony in the absence of hostility and violence. Peace is commonly used to mean a lack of conflict and freedom from fear of violence between individuals or groups. There are many failed peace attempts. It isn't just Israel versus the Palestinians, it's also Palestinians versus Palestinians, Arabs versus Arabs, and Jews versus Jews. Peace cannot be unilateral, as the fighting will never stop. Attempted peace. So, in 1979, we had the Israel-Egypt Peace Treaty between Anwar Sadat, Menachem Begin, and President Jimmy Carter. In this treaty, Israel gave back the Sinai Peninsula, and Egypt recognized Israel with full diplomatic ties. Anwar Sadat was assassinated 2 years later by a Muslim. The Oslo Accords in 1993 were between Yitzhak Rabin, Yasser Arafat, and President Bill Clinton. The Palestinians got the right for self-determination, and the PLO recognized the state of Israel, and Israel recognized the status of the PLO. 2 years later, Yitzhak Rabin was assassinated by a Jew. Benjamin Netanyahu opposed Rabin's peace plans in 1995. Today, Benjamin Netanyahu is again the prime minister. He takes a hardline approach to the Israel-Palestine issue.
As head of the conservative Likud party, Netanyahu himself became the face of the opposition to Oslo.
Netanyahu saw a moment of betrayal and peril and an agreement that would never and could never work.
There's a really ugly character to it. The level of vitriol, the anger, the scope of these demonstrations, the kind of incitement, the portrayal of Rabin, dressing Rabin in Nazi uniforms or putting a keffiyeh on him.
Netanyahu found himself at the center of the anger.
In most cases, he doesn't do anything about it. I think Netanyahu, even in some ways, benefits from this association with the rabble-rousers on the right.
I think the country's political system was superheated. It was like a car riding on a highway that had no water left in the radiator. And you could look at the temperature gauge, and it's all the way in hot.
The intensity grew, culminating in a massive protest. Tens of thousands crammed into the center of Jerusalem.
He was genuinely outraged, but he knew how to channel that outrage, and that coincided with his rise to power.
In Netanyahu's conservative Likud party, there was concern about the growing tension in the crowds that night.
There were moments when Netanyahu was advised that, there are real nutcases in the national religious camp that we see that we need to calm down, even gesturally. Netanyahu never did that. He never did that, to his enormous discredit.
The crowd was with him as he attacked Arafat.
של איש הדמים ערפאת.
And then the government of Yitzhak Rabin.
אני אומר כאן לממשלת ישראל שמתרפסת בפני האיש הזה. אני אומר לה בשם הציבור הגדול הזה, אנחנו כאן כי לעולם לא ניתן לחלק מחדש את ירושלים.
All Likud leaders, especially Benjamin Netanyahu, they have used very strong language against Prime Minister Rabin.
אנחנו פה כי יש לנו רק ירושלים אחד ונשמור עליה.
They didn't use any kind of condemnation against the violence that was starting to take place.
Netanyahu would later say he never saw the ugliest moments that night. Throughout Israel, the anger boiled over.
I was there, and a lot of other people my age were there. This was such a volatile atmosphere at the time, and the writing was on the wall.
Night after night, the crowds massed across the street from Prime Minister Rabin's apartment in Tel Aviv.
I'm there one Shabbat evening. We're talking. It's just the two of us. And there's a demonstration outside. And I said to him at the time, I said, don't you worry about some of this? He goes, no. I mean, it's not that he was, it's not that he was completely dismissive of it, but he took it as kind of a given. He knew, in a sense, what was coming and simply accepted it.
Rabin responded with his own rally. More than 100,000 supporters singing of peace. Then, as Rabin was leaving, that's him coming down the ramp. The man in the blue t-shirt approached. 3 shots from behind.
The Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, the architect of the Middle East peace process, has been assassinated.
The assassin, a right-wing Israeli Jew, Yigal Amir.
Truly shocking news from the Middle East tonight. Israel's Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin has been assassinated.
Evening spent dreaming of peace turns into a national nightmare.
Outside the hospital, the crowd began to chant, Bibi is a murderer. The sign says, Bibi, Rabin's blood is on your hands.
An assassin has taken yet another world leader away from us. It was just after the biggest peace rally in Tel Aviv.
Rabin's widow blamed Netanyahu for contributing to her husband's death.
Yitzhak Rabin has also produced shock in the Palestinian community.
And said so on worldwide television.
Your husband pointed the finger at Mr. Netanyahu and said, you must stop this incitement.
Yeah.
To what extent do you blame Mr. Netanyahu and the Likud for what has happened?
I do blame them. In a rally in Kikar Zion in Jerusalem that showed him in the uniform of a Nazi. So Mr. Bibi Netanyahu, now he can say from here to eternity that he didn't support it and didn't agree with it, but he was there and he didn't stop it.
Netanyahu's close advisor at the time vehemently disagrees.
The attempt to pin on him the murder of the Prime Minister is a cheap political propaganda trick that was taken by his political opponents, mostly from the left, in order to delegitimize Netanyahu as a political public and to delegitimize the positions of Likud in the Israeli open political debate.
As the nation mourned, Bibi Netanyahu faced the political consequences of Rabin's death. The American ambassador says they spoke about it the day before the funeral.
I remember Netanyahu saying to me, look at this. He's a hero now. But if he had not been assassinated, I would have beaten him in the elections, and then he would have gone into history as a failed politician. Netanyahu was thinking, well, politically, he was on the ropes before he was assassinated.
The Abraham Agreement is between Israel, the UAE, and Bahrain. It is to promote regional security, prosperity, and peace. This will start new forms of cooperation in the Middle East. The Jerusalem Embassy Act of 1995 was a law made during President Clinton's time. This law made sure that every president since then had to sign a 6-month waiver to stop the U.S. Embassy from moving to Jerusalem from Tel Aviv. In 2017, Trump formally recognized Jerusalem as the capital, and the embassy was moved. Toda Rabba, thank you.